This video was recorded in front of a live virtual audience. Hello everybody, Dacob here. Welcome to the Fashion Bunker. Today we're going to be reviewing CACHAREL's Eden. Now I'm wearing something very particular today for a reason. This perfume, for those of you who know it, represents Eden, paradise, but it also represents something more than that, something deeper than that, something darker than that, something that is more rooted in the base notes of this fragrance. And that is more than the rotting fruits, which we're going to get to. It's more than the tuberose, which we're going to get to. It goes deeper than that. It goes back in time. It goes all the way to something that is called the Black Locust. Now let's read a little bit about the Black Locust, shall we? History, 1730, attributed to William Byrd II. A locust tree is a very straight, tall, and rather thick tree whose wood is the toughest in all the world and almost cannot be broken. Thus, the savages usually make all their bows from it. I'm just quoting here. This is not my opinion, by the way. Some historians question the authorship of the natural history and have pointed to parallels between this work and John Lawson's History of North Carolina, 1714. Though Lawson was familiar with the tree, his description of it was quite different. The locust, for its enduring the weather, is chosen for all sorts of works that are exposed thereto. We have little or none of this wood in Pamtico, he wrote. The extreme resistance to rotting. And here we have the rotting fruits that we smell in Eden. But the extreme resistance to rotting of the black locust is perhaps the black locust's best known attribute, and it was on poles of black locust that the first buildings in Jamestown were erected. 100 years after the founding of Jamestown, Mark Catesby, author of Natural History of Carolina, Florida, and the Bahamas Islands, visited the site of the original settlement and recorded the following. Being obliged to run up with all the expedition possible such little houses as might serve them to dwell in, till they could find leisure to build larger and more convenient ones, they erected each of their little hovels on four only of these trees, pitched into the ground to support the four corners. Many of these posts are yet standing, and not only the parts underground, but likewise those above, still perfectly sound. The black locust is the most durable American wood for ground contact, and it is what is used to line the beds at the Colonial Garden in Williamsburg. It is also said that the black locust was the reason why the Americans fighting the war against the Brits won with their naval part of the battle, because their ships were, the bolts used for their ships were made out of black locust, while Britain's ships' bolts were made out of other woods that are softer. So when the cannonballs of the American ships would strike the British ships would fall apart because the bolts wouldn't hold. While the British ships firing the cannonballs onto the American ships were put together, held together by black locust bolts. Those would keep the ships together. So it is also said that the black locust kind of helped America win. The black locust is at the base of this fragrance, and it is almost never mentioned. Now, I have not really encountered great reviews of Eden online, so the ones I have encountered, nobody talks about the black locust. The black locust is what gives that sweet, humming sense and smell to Eden. Before we get to the spraying of the perfume, I would like to ask you, if you haven't already, to subscribe to my channel. Click the subscription button today, and also the notifications button. And also you can consider joining my channel, becoming a member. You can also join me on Patreon, superdacob all spelled together on Patreon. Thank you so much to the patrons who have already pledged and joined. Let's spray it on. This is a factice, by the way. It is the bottle of Eden from the 90s. It is a factice bottle, or a dummy bottle. You can see in the back, it has still its original little factice dummy sticker. This is how beautiful the glass was. It was kind of like a blown glass, but it was colored through and through with different shades of green so that you would get this marbled effect of the glass, of the green. Every bottle would be slightly different because this marbled effect would be different on every glass. This is the splash bottle. The spray bottle, I have it here in the new version, the new formulation, which is similar, or actually the same as we had with Loulou by CACHAREL, the review that I made last week. You could check that also. The link is in the description box down below, but also above here in the card section. This is a spray painted bottle. It is just a clear glass or a dark glass, and then it's been painted in green. So in fact, the bottom, you could see it's already starting to scratch off and peel off. So this is the newer formulation. Then I have the original formulation in this miniature 5 milliliter splash bottle from the 90s. So we are going to place the miniature original formulation splash of Eden on this wrist here. Okay. Let's do that. It's kind of hard with the splash bottles. I need some more. I need some more juice, you guys. Oh, there you go. That's a lot of it. Good. Okay. Whoa, that's intense. Loving it. And now we're going to do... So, of course, I have this historic attire. This is a Vivienne Westwood pirate hat, by the way. Let's do one more. And we got the original, well, not the original, the new formulation on this wrist here. So we're going to hold the two up so we know what is on what wrist. New one smelling here, original there. So it's a historic kind of, we were touching base on the locust flower and the locust tree. By the way, I'm going to show you how it looks like. This is the Black Locust. It has a very sweet, and if you may, let me take down the light a little bit so you can see it better. It's a very sweet smelling, humming scent, and it can be almost honey sweet. And it's a beautiful, beautiful flower that hangs off of the tree. And that's what gives, Eden this particular heft that we're going to go through right away now. So I'm going to read to you the ingredients that are in Eden. And so top notes declare peach, bergamot, mandarin orange, lemon. Mid notes, mimosa, water lily, tuberose, melon, lotus, pineapple, jasmine, lily of the valley, and rose. Base notes, patchouli, sandalwood, black locust, cedar, and tonka bean. Now, the perfumer behind this masterpiece is Jean Guichat. Jean Guichat also created Loulou and Obsession. Obsession by Calvin Klein. You can also check out that review on my channel. What else do we know about Eden? Release date 1994. 1994 is a particular time for fashion and perfumery. We're out of the 80s. There's still kind of vibration of the 80s in the air. We still have reminiscence of the 80s echoing through the fragrances of the first years of the 90s. In fact, I want to say that when it comes to Jean Guichat in particular, Eden is a masterpiece. It is as if he delivered... It's as if he took Loulou, which smells very different to Eden, and made out of Loulou, like Loulou is a child of the 80s. Loulou is kind of a little sister of Poison by Christian Dior. Eden is nobody's sister. Eden is nobody's little or big sister. Eden is a beast of its own. It is, synthetically speaking, completely avant-garde for the early 90s. It is CACHAREL / L'Oréal's I would say, the highest height that they've ever been with a mass release product. The quality of this is just incredible. Even though it's very synthetic, it just catapults you into this world of Eden. Now, for those of you who haven't seen it, for copyright reasons, I can't show it to you here, but you could check out on YouTube the advertisement, the 90s advertisement for Eden. It's all in green hues, green and oversaturated reds and blues. And there's this, and it was one of the first commercials that were just shown on television with breasts showing. So there's this woman, you know, we think it's Eve in the Garden of Eden, and she's naked and she's walking through the Garden of Eden, and these flowers and everything is oversaturated because the smell of this is oversaturated. We are at the point of ripeness of a fruit and of a flower that is just about to turn over and become overripe and rot. And that heat in Eden, in the Garden of Paradise, is just ripening those fruits so much. And since there's just Eve and Adam over there, there's nobody else to eat all of those fruits. So of course they rot at a certain point. And we're right at that point when all of these fruits are just about to start to rot. And Adam is there as well. He's also naked looking for Eve, and she kind of seems to find him towards the end of the commercial. But as she's looking for him, or as he's looking for her, we get visuals of hanging Black Locust, which is not directly, I mean, they shot the commercial in studio, so they had probably plastic flowers and plastic trees, what artificial stuff built up. But all of these viney type of florals hanging in the advertisement are actually reminiscent of the Black Locust. And we have them throughout the whole, you know, as Eve is moving away the plants to walk through the Garden of Eden, she's actually moving the Black Locust. And then we have these, we do not know who created them, but we have these kind of plates that are floating on water, and they're carrying fruits with colors that are oversaturated. Everything is so dense and everything is so ripe for the picking, hypersexualized as well, and yet at the same time aseptic, because this perfume does not, it's not warm, it's not ambery, it's not, you know, it doesn't have that type of heat smell that usually amber and musks would deliver. It doesn't have any of that. This one is hyper conceptual, because even though those fruits, the pineapple, the peach, and the flowery mimosa, even though they can be hot, there's something within the smell of Eden that doesn't allow them to just emanate heat, because there's that always that balance with the border of, is it going to rot? Is it going to smell foul or not? And it just always is at the brink of going there, but it never does. And it keeps luring you in, and it keeps telling you, hurry up, because you might be too late if you don't hurry up. And that tantalizing humming vibration of Eden is what is so masterful about it, because it's a climax that is never reached, you know, but it's constantly there. It echoes, it constantly echoes. It reminds you of something. It's reminiscent of something. What is very, very important with Eden, whether it be the original formulation or the new one, don't place it too close to the nose. You should wear it further away from the nose. My personal tip, and this is, I love this fragrance to death in summer. In the hottest heat of summer, a lot of people are going to tell you, don't wear cloying, heavy perfumes. The heat is what allows these fruits to jump over. Instead of rotting, they blossom all over again. And my tip, and this is how I wear it when I'm wearing shorts in summer, I only spray it behind the knee. Both knees. So one spray behind one knee, one spray behind. So one spray behind the left, one spray behind the right knee. And they deliver these Edens on behind my knees. It's just the right distance from the nose. So as it crawls up your body and it reaches your nostrils, it changes just enough and it evolves just enough to reach that peak of the fruit being overly ripe, but just right. And mind you that dosing that fruit in Eden, dosing Eden properly, spraying it properly, finding the right spot on your body that suits the distance to your nose properly is key to enjoying this fragrance because of this oversaturation and ripe or ripeness, if that's a word you could say. You could use, if it's too close to the nose, if you spray it really like here or there, you don't allow the flowers to ripen enough. They're kind of cut off at a certain way, and you get a lot of the artificiality of the fragrance, but the distance is what makes, because just like in the Garden of Eden, you know, like how Eve is walking through, she's lured in by all these smells, and then Adam is as well. It's because they come from a distance, and they're luring them from a distance. They're humming scent. That is the key word here. So the more far away you are from it, and the better it is. A matter of fact, I remember just this summer, I was talking to somebody. We had a meeting outside, of course, social distancing. And the funny thing was, we were literally really distant. I mean, sitting on two opposite benches and outdoors. And this person kept saying, "Oh my God, what is this smell?" And I usually have this tendency, usually when people acknowledge my perfumes, I usually am very apologetic and I say, "I'm sorry, it's maybe too strong, maybe I exaggerated with it." And then they said, no, this is amazing. Are you sure it's you? Because you're so far away from me. I'm like, well, don't talk, stop, don't talk, I won't talk, we won't spit on each other. I'm just gonna come close to you, I'm gonna turn around because I have it behind my knee. So I moved my face and breathing away, I lifted my leg. And the person smelled behind me and he said, "Oh my God, that's it." And I was like, "It's Eden." And it's because, and this person was like, "Wow, but it's such a distance." And I'm like, "Yeah." And it only works because through the heat, it moves, it slithers like the snake, like the snake that lured Eve in, and it makes you pluck that apple. It's that incredible. It's that sophisticated and complicated. And you have to treat it with a lot of respect. Now, let's get to the formulation differentiations. What you will notice if you do manage to get a vintage version of Eden, by the way, the splash bottles are not in production anymore anyway nowadays, so if you find a splash bottle, you're going to know it's the original formulation. As artificial as Eden is, as synthetic as it is, still the 90s version it's less metallic in the opening notes. It hits immediately a place where the fruits and the flowers are together. They are kind of symbiotic. They're very symbiotic, and it works incredibly well. While on the new formulation, in the opening, you do get a metallic, more cold opening, and there's a very distinct separation between the fruits and the flowers. They blend in with heat. That's why you need to wear this one in heat in summer. They kind of merge with time on your skin. You got to give them some time, and then they merge, and then we hit the dry down of the new Eden or Eden, which then smells just like the original Eden, but it takes more time to get there. It's also a bit more powdery, the modern formulation. It just has a bit more powder, while the OG hits a tuberose note. It's like in the opera, the tuberose appears all of a sudden and kind of delivers a Maria Callas moment of just like, the yell, the scream. It's a very Medea moment. While in the new formulation, the mimosa is more prominent. It's dustier. It's a bit dustier. And here we got more of that depth in the original formulation. Now, I love them both. you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not going to tell you, oh, they've butchered a perfume. I think, again, just like with Loulou, L'Oreal did a relatively good job reformulating it. With Loulou, actually, I prefer the current formulation to the old formulation. With Eden, I do prefer the original formulation to the new one, but just because I like jumping over that metallic opening and I want to get right into the overripe and oversaturated fruits and flowers. However, the new formulation stays fresh longer. You know, because of that metallic opening, it has this tendency of maintaining longer its lighter note. You know, because the original formulation of Eden goes straight down. It's a vortex. You're like on this slide and you cannot grasp the sides of the slide. It just kind of, you jump on the slide and it just like, boom, it just takes you down into Eden, and there's no stopping. You cannot control it because it overwhelms you. It takes over all your senses. It's a masterpiece of a fragrance, and it's not given the proper respect today because people have forgotten it. In fact, even L'Oreal, I mean, they still produce it, but you know, they only do 30 ml, 50 ml bottles. They're now spray painted. They're not. It's not green glass, but it's just painted green, spray painted green glass, and they cheapened out on the ingredients, but they still did a good job, because a lot of brands, when they reformulate stuff, perfumes, they do a terrible job and the perfumes are just really, really bad. L'Oreal did a good job. It's still a wonderful perfume. However, just discontinuing the splash bottles is a shame. Really a shame. I mean, I'm wearing a pirate hat because I wish I were a sort of a perfume pirate that can just break into the archives of these brands, snatch the original formulation, and just get it done personal, not to sell it, but just to privately be able to create the original formulations and also the bottles. This is one of my, believe it or not, this is one of my favorite perfume bottle designs. I know I love my Chanel No. 5. I love Obsession. The perfume bottle is incredible. Opium. This is right up there with them, and with Poison. It's just so tactile. It looks like a leaf. It's like an abstraction of a leaf. Could be a nipple, because it is the advertisement does portray the first woman that is topless in a commercial on television, mind you, in the 90s. That was groundbreaking back then. But it's just to hold. I know this is a factice and it's a big bottle, but it's just, first of all, the cut here, the thin cut layer there, like a drop on this side, and then we have this roundness here, which you just hold. It just fits perfectly. I don't know. I'm a very tactile person. Touch for me is so important. So with a fragrance, it's not just about the smell. It's the entire experience. The packaging, the beautiful floral, ripe, saturated packaging of this perfume is also incredible. Thank goodness L'Oreal and CACHAREL have kept the same design for the box. So that already, the visual is important. Then when you get the bottle out, just touching it, the shape of it, this one is so organic, and yet it's also dangerous because it has this cut part and then has this little round thing to take off. It's just like a potion, like an elixir. Even in the miniature 5 ml, it feels so good to the touch. I'm telling you, it's an experience to touch the bottle. Then it's an experience to apply the fragrance. Then it's an experience to observe this, your whatever you own, whatever you have in your hands, and smell it on you at the same time. And look at the packaging, and then relive the whole experience by watching the advertisement. I mean, it's such a beautiful 360-degree full immersion that a perfume can offer you. And Eden really delivered with its first release, with its advertisement. It's just so masterful. And there is, I swear to you guys, there's nothing else out there like Eden. No other perfume smells like it. And for today's standards, this is niche. This is like as niche as it gets. It is so special. It is so particular, and so complex and so complicated because, you know, I remember the first time I smelled Eden, I was immediately mesmerized by it, but I was repelled by it at the same time. Something in it just scared me somehow. Because I guess it's at the brink of being overripe and those fruits are just about to start rotting. And that's scary. But then with time, I never forgot that smell. And then many years passed and it stuck with me and I never wore it. I just smelled it on other people sometimes. Until one day I was ready for it. Maybe I was ripe enough for it too, you know. Maybe I was rotten inside. I was rotten. I was ready to abandon myself to this passion fruit, to this somehow corrupted fruit of desire that is it's so alluring, but it's dangerous, you know. And when I was ready to abandon myself to that danger, when I was ready to go into that garden, not knowing whether or not those snakes are going to get me or not, when I was ready to just blindly go into that garden is when I purchased my first bottle of Eden. And ever since then, I have been, well, you could say I have been completely chained to it, you know, and I crave it. There are those times when I need it. I take the little bottle with me almost everywhere I go, just in case I need to sniff it and smell it, because it's such a boost, not necessarily of like energy, but it's a boost of memory. It makes you feel like you are in a different place. This one creates that space where you can travel through time. You can go back to the beginning of time. You can go back to the pirate era. You can go even into the future, you know. This is how I envision also the future to smell like when, you know, when whatever will be left of humanity thousands of years from now, who knows when it's all going to end. And artificial life forms are going to take over the memory of humans. This is one of those smells that I think would be very representative of the complexity of human nature. This one describes human nature in a very good way because, as I said, it's alluring, it's tantalizing, but it's also repulsive. It smells good, but it can also smell bad, just like humans. It is very, very, very indicative of humans, perhaps to a certain degree also of human nature. Mind you, this fragrance is not evil, but then again, I also believe that no human is born evil. You can become evil through different circumstances, but nobody comes to this earth already evil to the core. Neither does this perfume, but this perfume, just like humans, it can turn evil. If you don't know how to dose it right, if you don't know how to use it right, if you don't know how to treat it right. Just like with humans, you treat humans bad when they're little babies and they grow up, they can turn quite nasty. Same with this fragrance. It is very, very human. And I think that's what's so scary to me, that when I smelled it the first time, it smelled like me. It made me think of me. It made me think of humans. And I think it's no coincidence that it is called Eden. Now, you know, in the religious concept of Eden, that's where the first woman and the first man, you know, were created and met. And so humanity, theoretically, begath in the Garden of Eden. So this, more than a fragrance, I think for Guichard and for CACHAREL, I think more than a fragrance, this for them was the inception of humanity. It was like man and woman were created from this. It's not that woman was created from Adam's rib or whatever, vice versa, because vice versa I say because it's, again, gender. But maybe both of them were created after the fragrance was created. Maybe the fragrance was so human that humans stem from this, you know, and the visual of a memory of fragrances in some parallel universe, maybe it did happen just like that. And maybe, just maybe, Guichard got this kind of vision through a dream of, what if man and woman were created from a perfume? If it were that way, trust you me, it would have been Eden, because it smells of creation of something. And it's a sin. There's this primordial sin in it as well. There's a snake in here. There's the offering of that apple, the prohibited or the forbidden fruit. It is the forbidden perfume. Now, if you can get your hands on the original formulation, I highly recommend it, because it goes so deep and it's so wonderful, and it's blended masterfully. It's never too hot, never too cold, never too sweet, never too bitter, never too sour, never too spicy, never rotten, never too fresh, just ripe, just at the limit. It's constantly at the limit, just like human nature. You could tick us off at any minute, and any second we could just like go off on you, and then at another moment we could all be laughing and it's all fun and games. That's how masterfully blended Eden is in its original formulation, and I love this perfume to bits. This is one of those fragrances that makes me so happy to be alive just now, and like to have been alive, or to be alive when this perfume exists, because it's such a gift to humanity. While the current formulation, it's also beautiful, but it's screechier. You know, it's not as masterfully blended. It has a little bit of a, it slaps you in the face a bit more, hence more distance from the nose. Wear it far away from the nose, and then if I smell it like this close, not so good, but from a distance, it's much better. It resonates better. And but again, the new formulation in the heat in summer, and then it blends. That heat finishes up what L'Oreal didn't finish up with the current formulation. The heat helps it melt together like wax. Oh my gosh, then it becomes this mimosa, tuberose, lily of the slight bitterness of the lily of the valley, peach and pineapple combined. They just stick together like Play-Doh, and then they kind of blossom through your nose. While the original formulation is masterful from the get-go, and it's never screechy and it's never metallic. Eden is the prohibited or the forbidden perfume, as the advertisement states, but it's not just a forbidden perfume. I want to say it's like a presence, like an imprint of what an artist, in this case Guichard, the perfumer, what an artist can do in terms of painting with smell. Such a specific picture on a wall. The Stendhal syndrome of falling into a painting is what applies to Eden. You literally have no choice but to fall into that paradise full with dangers, but they're all such beautiful dangers. They're so attractive, tantalizing, just like the stories that we read, you know, of these amazing adventures of pirates, off the shores somewhere in the seas, and they lead these dangerous lives, but they're in many ways attractive and handsome, and their lives seem to be so full of life and energy, despite the fact that it could end bad for them because they are outlaws. This is an outlaw fragrance, and it is an outlaw just because it doesn't abide by social norms. It's like an animal. It doesn't follow social rules. It's instinct. Eden is pure instinct, blended to perfection. Thank you guys so much for watching. I actually have my live audience here in the chat section. So let's see what you guys are saying about Eden and this pirate world of paradise. Yeah, says Melly. Impressive, says Robert. Shelly says, love it. Mike says, the hat. Yes, robots can be locked as. Gotta be Vivian's hat, isn't it? Yes, it is Vivian Westwood. I have just found Nuits Indiennes de Jean-Louis Scherer in my 1900s archives box. I remember they came out at the same time and used to smell similar. Melly says, it is Vivian Westwood. The wait time was all the assistants working, says Lucas G. Daniel says, loving the hat. Thank you. Robert says, the hat is beautiful. You look like a sexy pirate, says Robert. Thank you. Got a ship, says Robert. Oh, yeah. I got a ship. Dondism, we are live. I'm here. Missed the New Year's Eve live. Hoo-hoo. I'm so excited to be here. Welcome, Dondism. George says, Adam and realness. Yeah, a little bit. What an interesting note for a perfume, says Melly. Yes, the Black Locust. Where do you get all of these amazing factice bottles, says Harry? They find their way to me. This was meant to be. This one, it actually took me 2 years to get to it, though. Loving the bottle, says Daniel. Melly says, I have the same tiny bottle. Oh, the 5 ml. I get waterfall vibes, says Melly. Waterfall vibe. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, it does have a memory of water in it, doesn't it? That's a really good point. But I get that metallic note is actually also quite floral in the current formulation, in the new formulation. And I think the lotus is also, the lotus it's a water plant, and I think the lotus flower contributes quite a bit to this waterfall effect. Oh my God, as it's developing on the skin, it's just, plus it's very hot in the fashion bunker with all the spotlights, so the heat is really making the flowers blossom. It's so majestic. Melly says, I don't get any citrus, just the florals. Yeah, I'm also not, I don't get the citrus either. Melly says, the commercial of Eden is so intense. Emilia says, Le Parfum Défendu, the forbidden perfume. MK says, Dacob, I don't agree with Eden being a scent on its own. I remember the same year, Nuits Indiennes by Jean-Louis Scherer was released, and it did have some similarities. But MK, same year releases, you know that it takes years to develop a fragrance. They didn't copy each other. Maybe it's a coincidence, but to me, they're very different. Robots can be locked as, and then she ate the apple and screwed it for us all. Just watched the vintage advert, said Rich. Melly, it is not a comforting fragrance. Louis says, I'm literally watching the video as you describe it. Rich says, those actors will be in their 50s now. Emilia says, to me, it is comforting. You see, Eden to me is comforting as well, but I think because in my case, I really abandoned myself to it. I find comfort in sin. I find comfort in knowing that I am not perfect. I find comfort in embracing the imperfection, because that's so human. I don't want to fight that. I'm not a robot. I can't be perfect. And this fragrance reminds me that I'm not perfect. But it also tells me at the same time it's okay to not be perfect. And that's why it's comforting to me. Robert says, to me, it is unaffordable. Robert, I mean, there are versions, like, if you're lucky, I don't know in your area, but like this one, the 30 ml, I got this one for $15. I mean, it's not the cheapest, but it's not $60, 15. So if you're lucky and you kind of time it right, because sometimes they go on sale, there are also some special offers, it can be found for cheaper, but depending which area you're in. MK says, also 1992 was a very revolutionary turning point in the perfumery history with the release of L'Odyssée, Jean-Paul Gaultier Classique, Angel. I remember thinking at the time, the 1980s are definitely gone. I mean, the 90s were very intense with perfume releases. The 90s literally collected everything that has been already the groundwork set in the 80s for perfumes. 90s took it to a whole new level. Also because technology had evolved by then, and so certain things were possible in the 90s that were not possible in the 80s. So they did take it to another level. I love heavy perfumes in summer, says Daniel, especially here in the humidity of Australia's summers. Then Daniel, you must try Eden. Emilia says, Eden and Dune are probably the most conceptual and original smelling perfumes of the 90s. Rich Mitch, apologies, I was thinking the Pour Homme. I don't know which perfume we're talking about now. Daniel says, I would like to try this one. I am sure I would like it, Eden. Does it smell like old lady? I hate old lady perfumes, says robots can be locked on us. I think you're doing this just to tease a little. Because in the fashion market, there's no such thing as old lady perfumes. Ageism is a terrible thing. Don't even go there. And when it comes to perfumes, anything in general, very tacky, very tasteless. Don't go there. That's actually quite rude. So I'm scrolling through the comments. Let's see. Georgia Gent or Gent, hi, how are you doing, sweetie? Word, just subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. I see he has pronunciation guidance. I for sure need that, LOL. Amina says, the decay is so symbolic of the edge of paradise and the world. It is very symbolic, and it's actually very, very time specific, I think, for our times right now. It's very relevant today, I think. There's something very botanical and natural smelling about Eden. It's almost a non-perfume perfume. Very well said, Emilio. It is a non-perfume perfume. It is botanical. Sometimes it can even go in that earthy direction. Kiedora says, never too sour, never too sweet. Reminds me of mixing in music. Audrey says, how old is the bottle that you are holding, Dacob? Having issues with my... what does Wi-Do mean? Oh, Wi-Fi. The bottle... Okay, so this one is from the 90s. This one is from maybe 5 years ago. This is awesome. I'm glad this popped into my recommended. Thank you, Rich, says Georgia. Perfumers either aren't as good now or they're being told to make interior blends, says Rich Mitch. Jack says, you just convinced me to buy a vintage bottle. Can't wait to smell it. Oh my God, Jack, you are going to literally travel to this dangerously beautiful paradise garden when you have Eden on. It's just amazing. Patrick says, I love the hat. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you. I have to try the new version of Eden, says Melly. I wonder if Nautica Blue Sail got its inspiration from the bottle design, not color or anything, just the shape. Could be. I don't know. I was going to say that from my memory of Eden, it had an ozonic quality, says Aisha, as in ozone. And remember it being quite a cold fragrance. It can turn cold. In colder months, it freezes. It literally, it's like, envision the Garden of Eden frozen, crystalline. Everything is just like, boom, frozen. Nothing moves anymore. Nothing breathes anymore. That's how it can turn also cold. And it is ozonic, like as in ozone. I totally agree with you. It's a very good observation, because in particular in the current formulation, even in the old formulation, the OG formulation, it has that airy ozonic smell, but more of a garden, like a glass garden that is, sealed off, and then you have exotic plants growing in there, and when you enter, there's like a different type of, those plants create their own humidity and their own little kind of ozone effect there, and there's that type of smell of that isolated garden. Eden has that effect. It does have that reminiscence in the smell, especially in the dry down. Robert says, here it goes for around 50, 60 bucks, converted from rubles, 30 mil, talking about Eden. Ooh, no, that's a lot. That's not a good price for it. Definitely no. Vanny, hi Vanny, how's it going? Vanny says, hi Dacob, hi everyone. Hi Vanny, we're reviewing Eden. If you like resinous rooty perfume, try Fou d'Absinthe by L'Artisan Parfumeur, or even Eau de Gentian Blanche by Hermès, traditional Chinese medicine. Okay. Eau de Gentian Blanche is not resinous at all, but the gentian root is in it. It is a very, very bitter smell. Gentian Blanche, I would not compare it to Eden, to be honest with you, personally. I love the bottle. It reminds me of a prop from Edward Scissorhands. When Edward lives in the small town, is that strange, says Audrey about the bottle. MK says, exactly, you got a point. Very Tim Burton-esque design. Rich says to MK, thank you. Is Basala always a splash? Is there reformulation issues? Anything to look out for? Oh, okay, gosh. Well, that's something that MK has to tell you. I don't know. Guys, thank you so much for the chat, though, for your opinions on Eden and for wearing it with me and for reviewing it with me. It definitely warrants the respect and hunting it down and trying it out, because your chances are you never smelled something like this. And even if you end up not loving it, it will grow on you. You will never forget it. You're always going to remember it, and you're going to think about it like when you least expect it. Maybe a year or two after you've tried it the first time and you think, it's not really for me. It's going to anchor and harpoon itself to your memory, just like the best perfumes do. They're all about memory, olfactive memory. And even if a year or two will have to pass, sooner or later, you're going to remember it, because once you've smelled it, you can never forget it, and you're going to crave it, and you're going to miss it. And when you're ready, you know, when you are mature enough, by mature enough, I don't mean, you know, wiser or not wiser, just when you've ripened enough for Eden, you will go back to it, and you are going to start loving it unconditionally, because it is a fragrance that is loved unconditionally. It's just that beautiful. It's that conceptual, it's that instinctive, it's reduced to the core. It's very, very, it's a core fragrance. So there's not much really to, it's not a meh perfume. It's not one of those, you know, perfumes that don't have nothing to say, that don't really have a character, that are just made to earn money quickly. No, this one has so much character that it, you know, it literally does not let you just pass by it. It enriches you. It enriches you because it gives you a concept of more than just your daily routine. And that ultimately to me is always worth it. It's always worth it. It always has been, and this is why I love perfumes at the end of the day. So thank you, Eden, or Eden, and thank you, Mr. Guisha, for creating this masterpiece. I will forever and eternally be grateful. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider subscribing to my channel here on YouTube. You can also push the notifications button right next to it, and consider becoming a member. Join the channel today and get special extra perks. You can also join me on Patreon. Become a patron today and get also extra perks there. You can follow me on Instagram, superdacob all spelled together. I also curate two Chanel dedicated fan base Instagram profiles. One called Coco Chanel is in my house, all spelled together, where I showcase my entire collection. And then there's another one, Coco Chanel Privé, dedicated to Coco's life. Everything that she achieved during her life. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, never forget to never give up on love. Love you all. See you soon. Take care. Bye. Mwah.